Okay. So I will call this meeting to order. There are some changes to the agenda. We do have a closed session after Mayor's Corner. The purpose of discussion on the matters of citizen appointments to a committee under the FOIP Act, Section 17, 23, 24, and 29, and the matter of privileged information under the FOIP Act, Section 27. Any other changes to the agenda? Councillor Ferguson.
A motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. First off, in our 289 page package tonight is page 3, which is the special meeting of council from March 14th. Any concerns, edits required for that? Councillor Gramlich.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes from the special meeting of council March 14th as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next on page 4 in our package, we have the minutes from March 15th. Councillor Brandel.
On page 6 of our package, the tax recovery auction, Mayor and I stepped out, but it doesn't say that we come back anywhere, I saw. And the motion on page 7 of the package, motion 12222, doesn't have a councillor name on it.
Say to clean that up. So I would say that we probably were out for approximately 12 minutes. So let's change it to that we were returned at. Oh yeah, it'll be right on the, okay, on the video. Okay, perfect. And then I guess you'll do that same thing for the council. Okay, so then theoretically, until we have that information, no, we wouldn't approve them. So they'll come back to the next meeting. Okay. So actually, we shouldn't make a motion to table them to the next meeting. So council makes a motion to table the regular meeting of council minutes for approval from March 15th to the next council meeting on April 19th. We don't do them at the council of the holes. Sorry, somebody comfortable making that motion? Thank you, Councillor Gramlich. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Question period. Any highlights you want to touch on real quick, Mr. Roth?
No, I wasn't prepared to speak today.
That's fair enough.
But happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Any questions from council? Councillor Adams.
I just got a quick one. I noticed with some of the changes going on around town right now with, potholes being shown and whatnot around, to try and get a concern across to the town, I found even myself it very difficult to know who to speak to, where to go with it. I was wondering if it's possible to look into putting either a concerns button or something like that on our webpage on the first page, and somehow having that go into our staff, and then also being able to timestamp it, be able to do a circle back to the person who had the concern when they put their name and email in there, just so we could close the loop that something was dealt with. Or if anybody wants to discuss that.
Sorry, I was just making a note of that. So yeah, we can certainly look into that.
Okay. Yeah, because you go on the website right now there. We used to have a spot where you could do that. And I know on before when we had the app, there was an option where you created a sign-in thing.
Yep.
We don't seem to have that anymore. So there should be an easy way to give feedback.
Is the app still a thing or is that not a thing?
Because the alternative is we would just post everything on Facebook and then people would think that we monitor all that, but we don't. So we should make sure that we have some kind of feedback loop there that comes back to us.
No, definitely. We'll look at.
Councillor Gramlich.
While we're on the topic of the web page, I think Councillor Giroux was approached with this too over the weekend, and I was people are looking for a spot to submit community delegation recognition type thing. I know we did it maybe my first 2 years on council, and I don't know if it left during COVID. Is that something else we could add where Joe Blow goes to provincials and gets a gold medal and we could recognize him here one night? Tyler, do you remember that at some point?
Yeah, there wasn't a spot to do it. It was usually, it was things that we heard from the community or community people that approached us. To be honest, the best source of information for everything was going on previously was Harry Bartlett. He used to come to every meeting and sit here. And now he'll just watch it tomorrow and laugh when he sees this recording. But yeah, there should be a thing, but you know.
Yeah, I was approached that they'd like to bring some under council, sorry, what? Under the council heading? Because now that we can have people back in here, they used to bring in, like, I remember coming to a meeting and there was sharks and they recognized them.
So there's a spot for delegations, yes. Where you can go in there. It's less about community recognition and more about that piece. But theoretically, a delegation form could accomplish the same thing. So I would recommend that they do that and we can go from there. Because I know that there's some, like I was going to talk about in Mayor's Corner tonight, like hockey. There's some opportunity there, but we'll get to it later. Other questions, comments? Was Councillor Graham again?
I'll play Councillor Adams' role tonight. Just wondering if ice users have been informed of the possibility of ice, like actually approach saying, hey, please rent our ice since we may be leaving it in.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, they have been. There's been several communications out to ICE users as well as conversations with specific groups. So yes, there definitely has been.
Has there been traction on it? Like, are we getting rentals?
A little bit. There's one group that has 100% secured some ice, and there's some that have said, no, it's not, they're moving on to another season. And I think there's still one group that we have not heard back from, but we're continuing to pursue that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brandel.
Gary, last year we did the little test run for that new asphalt, plat asphalt. And was it the strip by Tim Hortons that got done, or because I know we were talking about doing that section, but then there was talk about those strip on Caribou Trail. So too.
I think there were, if I remember right, there were other strips that ended up being dealt with under that program, but I can check into it a little bit more. I also know that in talking with our operations director, I guess the jury's still out on the effectiveness on that product,
Okay,
because they're experiencing some concerns with it. And now that we're getting into spring, there's a couple locations where it's starting to show signs of lifting, I guess is the easiest way to describe it. So
Okay.
I think there's still some evaluation of it needs to happen.
Okay, that's what I really was getting at. So thanks.
Okay, other questions, comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, paper everywhere. We'll jump into page 10 of our package. Tax rate bylaw 03/2022.
We should put that one after. It should be budget first.
That would make the most sense. Okay, so sorry, let's jump into then page 16, which is the 2022 operating capital budget.
Okay, good evening, your worship and members of council. The purpose of tonight's report is to have council adopt the 2022 operating and capital budgets and the 2023 to 2025 operational spending plans. For the background on this, I've just quoted the two sections in the MGA that outlines the requirement for the municipality and council to annually adopt a operating and capital budget. And tonight, if we are successful, we'll have both in place for 2022. Included in the package, in this very large package, will be the copy of the operating and capital budgets that once, and if they are approved, will be posted online. We've beefed them up this year to fairly lengthy documents with a lot of information for those that wish to read through in a more detailed plan, broken down department by department, and kind of outlays the plans for each department. So moving on from that, the 2022 operating budget. So what exactly is a budget? A budget is the town's operational plan and priorities expressed in dollars and cents. It is a supporting document to outlay the revenues and expenses needed in order for the town to achieve its strategic goals. For the operating budget, it mainly focuses on the day-to-day services that the town provides to residents, such as fire protection, snow removal, road repairs, arenas, pools, and park services. Utilities such as water, sewer, and garbage are also in the budget, but they are supported entirely through their rates. For the budget planning process this year, we started at the departmental outlook. So each department goes through their cost centers and budgets and inputs their information. Through that, once that stage is done, this year we held a kind of a joint strategic planning session between administration and council to gather council's new strategic plan and to help administration align to that new plan as well. From there, we move on to corporate-wide coordination and integration. So each of the departments get together, we sit as a group and go over each other's budgets and see if there's synergies and alignments within the working group. And also from after that, we go through a corporate budget priorities list. So we rank and see what is the most valued and cut things prior to bringing it back to council. And the last step there is the stakeholders feedback, which is where we then involve council in the process and gather their feedback on what administration has prepared so far. I've listed in here just the dates that meetings were held for budgets. So we did have our strategic planning sessions on November 3rd and 4th. First draft of the operating and capital budgets were presented to council on December 13th and 14th. And then through January and February, there was council feedback meetings. Through the strategic planning, I won't go through this in great detail, but these are the council identified 5 key areas for the organization to focus on in 2022 and beyond, with the highlights being economic health, livability, good governance, relationships and partnerships, and communication. From there, the budget focus is centered around the town's vision statement, which is Slave Lake is committed to building opportunities by growing business, industry, and population while promoting ourselves and our exceptional quality of life. The proposed 2022 operating budget reflects the costs of maintaining Slave Lake's core services, programs, and infrastructures that its citizens rely on every day, as well as new initiatives, economic development, and improvements to programs that would advance council's strategic vision. Administration included its strategic priorities, both in terms of ongoing work and for new projects. The primary priority is to maintain and improve core services with a focus on customer service, staff recruitment and retention, and program delivery in a post-COVID-19 world which meets the needs of its residents. The town aims to achieve these objectives by attracting and retaining quality staff, increasing efficiency and effectiveness through innovation, skill development, and a healthy work culture. Challenges throughout the budget process here faced by the town are the rising costs of inflation, downloading of provincial costs onto the organization, and challenges faced in recruitment and retention of personnel within the organization. Key strategies to address these issues and revolve around prioritizing projects and service deliveries to key initiatives, seeking out additional funding sources, and promoting and attracting talent to the organization. Some of the priorities to support council's strategic plan and to address upcoming challenges, and I won't go through all of these, but it did have economic development highlighted here. Furthering initiatives toward the economic development program with a key focus on branding and marketing the town of Slave Lake and area to promote tourism and encourage business development in our area. This also includes a community outreach and logo rebranding strategy that is currently underway for 2022. Recruitment and retention. COVID-19, among its many challenges, has also been taxing on staff recruitment and retention. A key area of investment for the town to focus on is its ability to recruit and retain personnel to promote and build opportunities within our organization. I'll skip a couple of these down here. Planning for the future. So we also took a look at some of the changes going on and the road ahead of us. One of that is the disaster disaster recovery funding model that the province changed in 2021. So in prior years, all expenses incurred by a municipality for disaster were eligible for under the DRP program, the disaster recovery program. The model was changed and municipalities are now expected to pay up to 10% of the cost of a disaster. So part of budget 2022 was taking this into account and setting aside some funds in a disaster recovery reserve to be able to pay for some of these costs. Other new reserves are the Technology, Infrastructure and Innovation Reserve, our Future Expenditure Reserve, and the Planning and Development Reserve. With that, I can move on to the major highlights in the 2022 operating budget. So when it was all said and done and all the numbers were crunched and tallied up, I've listed for council and the public here favorable and unfavorable changes within the budget. Unfavorable denotes an increase in costs or a reduction in revenue, and favorable denotes a decrease in expenses or an increase in revenue. Starting with the favorable factors in budget, we do have 2 existing loans that have been paid in full in 2021 that had a favorable impact on the budget of $161,000. Franchise fee revenue is expected to generate an additional $140,000. Intermunicipal transfer payments are expected to increase by $94,000. Service fee revenue from service fees, Big Fish Bay are expected to increase for the year. And moving on to the unfavorable numbers for the year. Inflation of expenses came in at the #1 impact to budget for this year. The net cost of inflation after operational savings amounts to an additional $270,000 to fund existing service levels and ongoing operations. RCMP came in at the 2nd biggest impact to budget, and this is a result of the contract price negotiated between the Government of Canada and the National Police Federation to give themselves increased pay to reflect the inflation that they're experiencing. Not included in the budget are adjustments totaling $360,000 to $380,000 for retroactive payments for member adjustments. At the time of budget, the Alberta Municipality Association has advised all municipalities to delay payment while they negotiate on our behalf to put these costs back onto the federal government. Should this process not be successful, the town could be liable for the additional amount as well. Going on to #3, staffing, recruitment, and retention at $221,000. So within this increase here, there is 1 additional FTE for the organization, and the remaining amount within this amount here is to address staffing, recruitment, and retention issues by having additional amounts budgeted to support the recruitment budget to attract talent and provide new incentives for new hires. Additionally, within here, we'll be performing an external wage review performed by an outside consultant that will come into the organization and take a look at our current wage grid and compare it to a number of other municipalities and private businesses to give the town a reasonable comparison to what the market is currently looking like. And within that, there's also money to give the administration the ability to make targeted wage adjustments based upon the information that is provided by this wage survey. Moving down the list is power and gas. Power and gas costs will see an additional increase due to the rising carbon taxes, as well as increased running costs from our new blower houses in the sewage lagoon facility. Other amounts, grants to other organizations. So this largely centers around the Fire Smart and Wildfire Legacy Corporation. These are two programs that the town is both involved in and oversees, as well as increased amounts for a program run by Community Futures to support loan interest payments to help aid businesses renovate their storefronts. Going down on here, one of the new initiatives and one of the new focuses here is around branding and marketing. So part of the economic development program and an initiative identified through the strategic planning, and an investment has been allocated to rebound the town of Slave Lake with a modern visual identity, as well as expanded marketing and advertising campaign to promote our region and attract new business. Insurance premiums continue their year-over-year increases, which had an impact of $42,000. And reserve transfers. We increased two reserves, both the reserve for the equipment for vehicles for the operations department for $20,000, as well as $20,000 for the MRC reserve. The next one is also a new initiative for 2022, which includes town beautification. Also part of our economic development strategy, additional amounts have been allocated to further enhance the community beautification around town. Training was also added, additional training for departments, with the bulk of the training centered around two key initiatives, such as communications training and conflict resolution training for both staff and council. And last but not least on the list is additional amounts for IT equipment. We are continuing our modernization efforts to increase efficiency. And the focus of 2022 will be new investments made for council devices. Other significant items in the budget are the loan repayment for the demolition of the properties within the town. Have been budgeted to be repaid in 2022 using reserves. And we've also budgeted in here for the sale of the fire hall, which has now since been sold. And the proceeds from the sale of the fire hall will be placed back into our building fund reserve. All in all, budget 2022 continues to focus on planning for the future, improving customer service, and promoting our region through economic development and tourism in the town of Slave Lake. Organizational well-being and ensuring the restoration of services post-pandemic also form part of a key strategic objectives for the town. The overall impact and net costs that require tax funding for the town have risen to approximately $701,000. Through a mix of tax increases, service fee increases, and reserve funding, the overall impact to the town's budget will require an additional $516,000 or a 5.9% increase in taxation levels over the previous year. And on the following page there, I've also done a table here for three different classes of properties that can be found in the town of Slave Lake to show the impact of what that would mean for people within those assessment ranges. So a household in 2022 with an assessed value of around $200,000, a 5.9% increase roughly translates to about $74 extra a year. The highest, the medium class in Slave Lake is around the $300,000 mark, which equals about $114 increase for the year. And the higher end properties at $550,000, this equates to about $203 extra a year on your property tax bill for the town of Slave Lake portion. With that, that is the operating budget. Do you have any questions? Questions, comments about budgets?
Just for clarification for myself on one, I know I should know the answer. But as far as the disaster relief reserve fund and what we're putting that at, is that going to be fully funded this year, or is that being staged in over a span?
No, the amount we earmarked was $200,000. So I looked at the past kind of incidents over the last couple of years, and we'll leave 2011 out because that is just an event that the town simply couldn't afford to take on itself. But we did have 2018 and 2019. We had a flooding event, and we also had the, when we evacuated the high-level residents that came here, as well as we had the kind of that McMillan fire came close to town there. We roughly spent on most of those between $80,000 and $160,000. So 200 will get us, started. I don't know for sure what the future costs, but that should get us through at least one without having additional funding required.
Other questions, comments from council?
All right, I'll keep going.
Councillor Adams.
I'll keep her going then. As far as, I didn't see the actual breakdown in there and I can't remember, but as far as the linear and grants in lieu of tax, are we seeing that from the government going up or down compared to last year? Or
It'd be the same.
Roughly the same.
they keeping it the
It's down from previous years, right? And that's happened over a couple of years where grants in lieu from the province were fully funded. They paid the full amount. And then they've decreased the amount that they have wanted to pay over the last couple of years down to about 50% of what a normal resident would pay. Our largest one here is the government center. However, because we have a lease with the government, that portion of the cut isn't, the town doesn't take a hit on.
Our biggest hit was approximately 3 to 4 years ago that we took a $130,000 hit because of the fact that they were no longer doing grants in lieu. Sorry, forgot to hit the button. So 3-4 years ago, we took a $130,000 hit because we were not getting grants in lieu for social housing anymore. And so they never ever replenished that. But theoretically, we haven't had much of a change since then, but it's 50% of what it used to be. I'm sure if that follows the trend of our MSI that we're getting 50 cents on the dollar too. The journey continues there. Councillor Brandel.
Talking about grants and decreasing. So how does the gas tax work going forward? Have we been notified now that the government is, giving everyone the discount of the no gas tax as of April 1st?
Yeah, so I haven't heard anything on that, and I do cover that in the capital budget for the capital funding. Gas tax funding is expected to remain consistent with what we've had in prior years, which is around the $360,000 to $390,000 mark.
Okay. So far, so good.
Other questions, comments? I've got some, but maybe I've got capital and operational kind of together, so I'll just save it for the next thing. So we're all done.
With that, I can move on to capital.
Yeah, actually, maybe I'll split it up so they make more sense in each one here. I'll just start out and say here before we move into capital that, what I really want to say that this is probably one of the most difficult budgets that I've ever done. And I feel like I'm like a Tweety bird and I say the same damn thing every year. But you have an all new council that comes in. We're compounded with these things that have come from COVID there before, and business, operations being running and not running, and buildings open and closed. Lots of staffing things going on behind the scenes. And it's a lot. We got half of our council is new, and to go up against those things, if you just put it in perspective for the average taxpayer to understand that, like, 1% tax increase nets you about $80,000 to $90,000. So when you start looking at some of these things that we're up against, and we're talking about inflation, everyone's feeling it in their own household. Everyone feels that the cost of running my house yesterday compared to today is totally different. And whether it's food, whether it's fuel, whether it's insurance, whether it's our utilities, we're feeling that. And I think on the town side there, to recognize that, man, we buy a lot of fuel, we buy a lot of utilities, these things are compounding. $270,000 is just the impact of inflation. $240,000 for our CMP wages, plus another $380,000 liability yet unfunded that we have to figure out and go from there. $190,000 increase just for power and gas. $42,000 extra for insurance. You know, and those hotel properties on top of that, where we basically took a loan there. We had a number of derelict properties. Those property owners were looking after. The town was forced to deal with it. $524,000 what we put into that. We put that through a loan, but now that loan has to be paid off. At some point, we hope to recoup that money, but it has to be funded. You know, those are big numbers of stuff that's in there when 1% only nets you $80,000 or $90,000. So, you know, I don't think anyone, you know, what does this translate into? We're going to talk about that here or whatever else, but you know, it's basically a 5.9% increase to the overall tax budget, the largest I've seen in the whole time that I've been on council. And I struggled with that all the way through. I think, you know, it was obvious that this whole entire group struggled with that. We started out, we were up over 15%. And I talked about that publicly here a month ago to throw that out there, and not an easy task. I look at CPI being 5.5% alone on its own just for over 1 year. But I have to remind myself too that over the last couple of years, we basically haven't taken much for tax increases at all. And so it was really a will of the previous councils to really hold the line during COVID. You know, I think families were feeling that. We want to do our best to make sure that we towed the line as much as possible and try not to be a part of that burden. But eventually we have to pay for the level of service here. And as much as that sounds daunting, you know, I think there's some great news items in here. This isn't a status quo item. You know, for taxpayers, they are going to get the same level of service that they got last year, if not even a bit more. We're putting money into our own organization and into our people. We're putting money into our parks. We're putting money into our facilities. We're putting money into our equipment. We're putting money into our reserves. We're paving roads. We're fixing water and sewer. We're doing more community support. We're talking about branding. We're talking about marketing, economic development. You know, and I think council has some big shoes to fill in the sense that we have to prove to residents over the next 12 months that that money is spent on good things. And a lot of that will come from communication and engagement with residents. But that's all in our strategic plan, and it's highlighted there that that's one of our top priorities. So we recognize it. So I just want to say now, I'll save my speech for capital for later, but you know, I really appreciate administration. I really appreciate council. You know, hours and hours and hours of meetings here to get where we're at. And it's tough there. You take flack from public online, and how do I take this 300 pages and put it into something that the public's going to engage with me in 2 minutes or less? I don't, and I don't expect them to. Our job is to make sure we do the best we can with the decisions that we have and the time we put the time and effort to make them. And I just want to say, I think that everybody's done a fantastic job. So, but this is where the work starts. Now the work starts to say that the money that we're going to spend over the next 12 months is worth it. And so there's a big job on the communication side to let residents know where we're winning and where we're losing. So with that, sorry, Roland.
No worries. So on to the capital budget. We have 35 projects estimated at about $11.6 million, 20 new capital projects, and 15 projects being carried forward from previous years. So new projects for the year. The big new one that we got highlighted is a new spray park. Includes an amount for the construction of a new spray park within the town of Slave Lake. Planning is still in the preliminary stage to determine the location of the new park. And once that is done, we will bring that forward to council and take a look. Another big ticket item here is the fire services rescue truck replacement. This is a replacement of the heavy duty truck at the fire hall. It was purchased 15 years ago, and it is the only heavy duty fire truck capable of performing the required rescue operations in our entire region. Next on the list is vehicle fleet replacement. So replacement of current fleet vehicles includes 2 utility vehicles, 4 used in operations, a vehicle used by office staff, and 2 vehicles used in community services. Next on the list is IT hardware replacement. Includes additional hardware, or say upgraded hardware for both the town office and the fire hall. We have the government center refurbishment, which includes painting and flooring replacements to target areas within the provincial side of the government building here. Hilda Even Park upgrades, a part of our multi-year project to be completed in a number of phases. The 2022 phase includes repairing and resurfacing of the tennis courts, repairing areas adjacent to the skate park, as well as a full replacement of the bollard posts that line the park. Also included is pool refurbishments. Enhancements to the pool facility include both the waterproofing of the existing basin walls within the pool, as well as replacing the existing deck surface to enhance safety and extend the life cycle as the pool. Smaller ticketed items, I won't go through these in much detail. Fire services truck replacement, some provincial government reporting on our effluent levels, a slip tractor storage facility, filter valve integration, again, is another provincial requirement for the town. One addition to the vehicle fleet, and the replacement of the bulk sewer dumping station grinder. So this, again, one of those unsexy projects that grinds up our sewage on our bulk facility. And then the last two new projects include a spray park controller, so that it would replace the existing water controller at our current water park to make sure that that can keep on functioning, as well as some refurbishments to the dog pound. Carry forward projects. So just due to COVID and a lot of our projects being unable to get off the ground last year, is where we see the bulk of this, with the exception of the downtown revitalization project. So the downtown revitalization project, we started last year and we had a grant from the province, from the MSP program, for roughly about $400,000. We've expanded that as well this year to really beef up our downtown core and update the landscaping and the area work there to $1.1 million. We were successful this year in securing an additional $500,000 of grant funding. So roughly $900,000 of this project includes grant funding, and the taxpayers don't have to pay for that. And we are going to kick in $200,000 of our own funds there to really give the downtown a nice revitalization. It's been a number of years since the core has been touched, and this is a significant investment to hopefully spruce up the area and make it more attractive for residents and businesses alike. The next one is a major road project, 3rd Street Southwest between 2nd Ave and 6th Ave Southwest. So engineering was pushed off to earlier this spring, but we do plan to have both the engineering and the entire project completed by the end of the year. Sea lift force pipeline to Maine. So this one was budgeted last year, and due to it coming in slightly higher above budget and some other supply issues, the project did not go ahead. Comes back this year at a price tag of $2 million. And this replaces one of the mains along 6th Avenue Northwest to Main Street. Next on the list is the water transmission connector from the northeast to southeast. Currently underway, you can see pipes parked alongside the park there. So this is probably the most vital piece of water infrastructure currently that the town intends to get completed in 2022. So the old pipe had broken, and it's a pipe that crosses the Sawridge Creek. Currently, right now, we only have one piece of pipe that connects the entire southeast quadrant. So getting this in place and getting this up and running is extremely important to put redundancy back in the system and ensure that the water connection to the southeast can supply water to the town. Lift Station D, this has been on budget for a number of years here. And in 2022, we are hoping that we will be successful in purchasing the land for the site and getting all of the right-of-ways and things of that nature kind of set up. And that will replace the existing lift station D with a new structure. Drainage system upgrades and Scada monitoring. These are two carry forward projects from last year, both funded from the MSP program from the province. Just due to supply issues, we were unable to complete both of these due to our inability to obtain the parts for both of them. And so we'll be finishing those projects up this year as well. Again, sidewalk rehabilitation, we have about 100 grand in that carry forward project from 2021 that was delayed. And so we will be again targeting areas in most need to replace and rehabilitate the sidewalk. CN rail crossing, this has also been on here as an ongoing project. CN was supposed to do a number of things here. Whether that gets done this year or not, we keep our eyes and ears open to see what CN's doing from some of these crossings. This would cover the portion that the town would need to pay for the additional crossings if CN decides to go forward with additional crossings in town. Lighting upgrades at the MRC. Various lighting adjustments to reduce the energy consumption while still providing quality throughout the building. Then we had ammonia ventilation. Again, that was in 2021 and was deferred, and that centers around the ammonia ventilation vents at the MRC. And then the last two we have is the water treatment plant office. Again, carry forward from previous years. This project was mainly put on hold during the pandemic. For 2022, we'd like to again revisit the office and take a look back at what it would take to restore and retrofit that part of the building. And last but not least, we have MRC tables and chair replacements. So through the normal course of use, some tables and chairs at the MRC have been worn out, and this will allow the town to make selective replacements for the worn out pieces to make sure that there's an adequate supply for various events that are held at our MRC facility. And two projects that are annual and ongoing include both our SCBA fire services, which is a breathing apparatuses for the fire services, and annual park upgrades, 50 grand that we allocate for various parks throughout town. Current year funding sources for the capital budget 2020-22 consist of a mix of town controlled reserves in addition to capital grants from different levels of government. Some of our bigger water and sewer projects have been deferred from 2021 due to COVID and supply constraints. Looking towards the future on our MSI. So MSI is set to expire in 2023 and will be replaced with a new local government fiscal framework grant. I've quoted a section that the Alberta municipalities gave during their budget outlook, and just kind of the part in bold is really what stands out. When LGFF starts, municipalities will receive 37% less funding per year compared to the annual average between 2012 and 2021. So while they do see some positives through the new local government fiscal framework, the funding level overall is absolutely significantly less and will have an impact to the town on some of our road funding and sewer projects on a go-forward basis. FGTF, which is the Federal Gas Tax Fund, will also be changing program names to the Canada Community Building Fund. However, this funding is expected to remain consistent with prior years. So overall, the downtown core will receive a significant investment at over $1 million for the year. Part of the economic development program, this project aims to revamp the downtown core to improve the landscaping and walkability of the area, as well as provide a space for downtown events and venues. Significant infrastructure investments includes investments into our roads and sidewalks and continuing investments into our water systems to provide and supply clean drinking water to residents. There are amounts allocated to address legally mandated environmental issues, as well as the replacement of fleet vehicles to maintain vital services to our community. Replacements of the most important and only heavy rescue truck in the area will allow the fire department to continue to provide its life-saving services to residents as well as the surrounding areas. Quality of life improvements include the refurbishment and the potential of a new spray park, enhancements to Hilda Eben Park, and investments toward the pool and MRC facilities. The capital budget provides for continuing investments for our community and to ensure that Slave Lake remains a place to build opportunities and provide an exceptional quality of life for everyone who lives and visits our area. And in the following table here, I've just listed the sources of funding and the total project costs for 2022.
Okay, additional questions and comments from council? Councillor Ferguson.
Just a few comments here. So for the people that are watching online, we spent a substantial amount of time going through this budget. And as Mayor Warman said, it honestly has been the most difficult budget session yet I've gone through. One of the things that I've always been passionate about is always trying to keep tax increases well below the rise of cost of living, or in other words, inflation. As councillors, we understand that the budget process and taxation is probably the singular biggest thing that we do that impacts residents. So please trust me when I say that budget process is not something that we take lightly. Everyone is feeling the pinch of inflation. I know that $100 in the grocery store buys me quite a bit less today than it did a year ago, and municipalities are no different. Looking at this budget though, we're accomplishing quite a bit. Economic development and branding, investment into town beautification, increased transfers to reserves to sustainably plan for capital projects, additional training, review and adjustments of wage grids where appropriate, server replacements, replacements of the fire rescue truck, upgrades to parks, modernization of technology, and so forth and so on, and many other items as well. We also heard very clearly from residents that they would like to see either a water spray park or substantial upgrades to the existing one. So we are actively looking into this, and administration is doing the groundwork to bring back a report for options and costs. This is all being able to be done despite items such as an RCMP wage hike that was out of our control, amounting to a tax increase of nearly 3%. Power and gas increases amounting to a tax increase of approximately 2%. Insurance increases amounting to about 0.5% tax increase. The provincial government, to make things even more difficult, is essentially slashing our MSI funding in half, which is used to fund capital projects in town, such as road replacement and these numbers haven't even factored in general inflation yet. So I will say, though, that I do applaud our administration. They knew that this was going to be an extremely difficult budget year, and they once again absolutely rose to the occasion. They found efficiencies. Rather than simply inflate expenses in proportion to what Canada-wide inflation truly was, which, by the way, was 5.7% in February 2022 compared to the previous year. They kept the town's inflations of expenses to approximately 3%, or nearly half of that 5.7%. However, with the RCMP contract negotiations, which I'll again reiterate was something that was 100% out of our control, it has pushed the tax increase up by nearly 3%. So of the 5.9% tax increase, nearly half of that is due to RCMP increases. So what does that mean for the average home in Slave Lake? As Roland already stated, it means that taxes will go up approximately $10 a month for the average home. As councillors, we all pay taxes too. I'll be getting dinged twice for this, once for my house, once for my business. Like I said earlier, this was the most budget I've ever been a part of. Lots of discussion with all of council, some disagreement on items, some agreement on items. But at the end of the day, though, I believe that we have a budget that invests in our community now and also plans for a sustainable future. And that's my 2 cents on budget 2022.
It felt like $3, not 2 cents, but it was good. I'll give you that.
I'm learning from you.
Yeah. I should have asked you first. I could have just not said anything.
Still time for that.
I have nothing to add. Any other questions, comments from council? Bryce said it all, eh? So with that, page 31 in our package, I got some motions I need.
So just on motion number 3 there, I think it's the on yours where it says adopt the 2023 operational spending plan. It should be 2023 to 2025.
Minus is 2023s to 2025.
Or does it?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Then we got it good.
So last one should say 2023 to 2025. On the last one on page 31. So we want 3 different motions here. Let's start with the first one. Councilor Ferguson.
Be resolved that council adopt the 2022 operating budget as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councilor Gramlich.
You resolve that council adopt the 2022 capital budget as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councilor Hughes.
Be resolved that council adopt the 2023 to 2025 operational spending plan as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So with that, we'll move back to page, man, there's a lot of pages here tonight. I'm having trouble just keeping them up here. But we're gonna move back to page 10 in our package to do the tax rate bylaw. Roland, before we move off that, I just do want to add that, you know, as much as there's 200 and some pages here of stuff, I thought it was put together very well. Once again, another bit of tweak to how we did budget. And I think every year we kind of improve on that. And I know you do a lot of the work for that. So I just want to say, like, great job. I think this is a good information to get out. I think more than ever now, there's definitely that feeling from the community that I want more information. I want to dig into this, whatever else. And so there's a lot here. If they really want to chew on it, they can. So I think you did a great job. I just want to say that.
Well, thank you. I think, yeah, we worked with administration to put forward our biggest budget package, I think, in quite a while here to give everybody as much information as possible. So
I was just gonna say along those same lines, from an accounting perspective, I really appreciated the level of detail we're provided. And I think that the package that's released to the public has a lot of information in it. So if you were like me and like to read the budget each year before you were on council, I know Bryce was the same with me. It is available for you to dig into and look at. And we've seen probably 4 times that volume of documentation than our 200-page agenda tonight. But I think it was done really well. So I just wanted to say on a professional level that I did also really appreciate that.
thank you.
Okay. Page 10.
Okay, so with budget being passed, I've also brought forward here the tax rate bylaw to provide the mill rates to be levied against accessible property within the town of Slave Lake. Again, with the background, just quoting the MGA to let everybody know what the MGA expects and is required of us. This bylaw must be in place by May 1st. The values of assessment that the town that are assigned to homes are not done by the town of Slave Lake itself. We do hire an independent assessor, KCL Consulting, who is currently our assessor, who is responsible to provide a fair market value within the town of Slave Lake. In addition to that, the government does audit all of these consulting firms. I just got a report back today too, ensuring that the processes and the valuations that they did are in line with what the government would expect a consultant to do for the town of Slave Lake. With that, yeah, each property owner pays property taxes based on how much their respective properties are worth. So when a municipality experiences a significant increase in property values, it does not mean that tax revenue will automatically increase. If property values generally increase throughout the municipality and the total cost of services remains, then that could also indicate there'd be a tax decrease, but everyone would still pay proportionally the same amount of taxes. So just to go over what 2022 looks like on the assessment value side. So overall assessment for the town of Slave Lake has increased by approximately $16 million. Residential assessment, including multifamily dwellings and condominiums, have seen an increase in the assessed value of approximately $8 million. Commercial and industrial assessments have seen an increase of approximately $6.3 million. Linear assessments have had no change from 2021, and non-taxable assessments have increased approximately $1.8 million. On the requisition side of things, the seniors requisition year over year has slightly increased from 275,000 to 279,000 in 2022. The education requisition has two components, both the public school and the Catholic school, and this has increased from 2.45 million in 2021 to 2.55 million in 2022. Designated industrial requisition. So this is something that the province instituted a number of years ago and is only assessed on a select amount of properties in town, which happen to be, in our case, the linear assessment values in town. This is something that we must levy. If the total amount is less than $1,000, there's no requirement to remit it back to the provinces, but we still must apply. In the town of Slave Lake's case, ours comes in at about $965 for the year. So we do levy it on the properties, but we don't actually send that requisition back to the province. Overall mill rate changes for residential and farmland will increase from 9.000 in 2021 to 9.3689 for 2022. Non-residential will have a mill rate increase from 13.3390 in 2021 to 13.8858 in 2022. With the combined mill rates for municipal, school, and seniors for residential changing from 11.9472 in 2021 to 12.4008 in 2022. And non-residential linear combined rate will change from 17.5028 in 2021 to 18.0869 in 2022. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Questions, comments? Nothing. Councillor Adams.
Be resolved that council give first reading of tax rate bylaw 032022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Brandel.
Be it resolved that council gives second reading of tax rate bylaw 03/2022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Drew.
Be it resolved that council give unanimous consent to third reading of tax rate bylaw 03/2022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Lastly, Councillor Gramlich.
Be it resolved that council give third reading of tax rate bylaw number 03-2022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. So with that, we've made it through 273 pages. And so we'll jump to page 274 on our package. And Kush, you are the lucky winner.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The purpose of this report is to provide contract award recommendation to council for lift station C force main replacement project. The scope of the project includes replacement of 6-inch diameter ductile iron force main to a 16-inch diameter PVC force main by vertical open cut trenching on 6th Ave Northwest. The upgrade is planned to improve the overall capacity of the lift station C discharge system for accommodating higher flows during peak season. The project was approved for in 2020 for construction at a budget of $1.45 million, but was deferred to 2021 due to pandemic. In 2021, town administration completed 2 rounds of tender. Both the rounds attracted bid prices over the allotted budget. The reason for such cost increases was due to abrupt material price increase and supply chain constraints. A recommendation was provided to council to defer the project to 2022. Town administration continued monitoring of material prices And it was found that the prices is not expected to go down any sooner. And there are more issues with labor and other factors. So a budget revision of $2 million was included in 2022 budget package to keep this project moving ahead. We posted the tender on 15th of February this year, and upon closing, we received 5 valid bids. Lowest bid was submitted by PME Incorporation out of Fort Saskatchewan in the amount of $1.55 million. So we completed our bid evaluation, and we found that PME scored maximum points and is recommended for awarding the construction contract. It's a company established in 2009 out of Fort Saskatchewan. It is a subsidiary company of Alice Dawn Holding. As a general contractor, they have completed various underground construction projects with similar size and scope within last 5 years. Also, they have worked with our consultant Associated Engineering on a lot of projects, and overall they have done reputable work and has the capacity to complete the scope of work as defined in the bid documents. PME proposes to mobilize in the week of July 4th this year and complete the work by last week of September this year. Anticipated project costs are $1.89 million. To date, we have spent $74,000 to complete project design and the 2 procurement round. Project is being funded from water and wastewater reserves. Our recommendation to council is to award the construction contract to PME Incorporation in the amount of $1,554,673.50 plus GST.
Hey,
Questions?
questions from council? I got a few. So first off, help me out. $100,000 dewatering contingency. What's that?
So we have found from our previous experience that the northwest corner is close to the beach and the water levels are pretty high. When we did our lift station C in 2008, the water table was sitting at 1 meter or less, and they had to do a significant amount of dewatering, which at the time had added cost. So as our strategy, we included $100,000 in our contract to deal with such situation.
Okay, so less of an impact on the overall contingency when the
Yes.
time comes.
Yeah.
And so help me out, Kush, I can't remember. So are we, because we talked about boring this line, we talked about open trenching it.
Yes.
Where do we end up?
We are doing open cut trenching.
Open cut trench.
Yes.
Okay, so this would include to fix pavement and stuff
Yes,
afterwards.
yes.
Because this is basically going to be an open cut hole all the way down 6th Ave
Yeah.
from basically the gathering place down to the
Yes.
3-way stop.
And it will be on the north side, closer to the curb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. We're oversizing. We're going bigger than what we had.
Yes,
previously.
we have 6-inch force main, and we are upsizing it to 16-inch.
To 16.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Adams?
Be resolved that council awards a construction contract for lift station C force main replacement project to PME Inc. in the amount of $1,554,673.50 plus GST.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Next question. Lori Skrinick,
Yeah,
come back. 278 in our package.
okay, your worship and members of council, the report before you is for bylaw 05, 2022 to receive first reading. The applicant and landowner is Corey Stab, and the subject lands are 320 3rd Avenue Northwest. What he'd like to do is rezone the lands from R1 standard detached residential district to high density residential district to facilitate the development of a fourplex. The subject lands maintain the appropriate designation in the municipal development plan, so no amendment is required to that document. The MPC will review this application at its May 2nd meeting. And again, the applicant purchased the property and would like to develop a fourplex. The parcel in question is larger than a standard residential property, about 60 by 107. He is confident that he has a building plan that will meet with the regulations of the R3 district in terms of setbacks and required parking. Notice of a public hearing will be advertised on the town's website for a period of 2 weeks, and referral letters will be sent to adjacent property owners. So at this time, planning department has no concerns, and we're recommending that bylaw 05/2022 receive first reading and the required public hearing be set for May 3rd.
Okay, and a reminder to council that any first readings brought forward by an applicant, we don't usually wait until after the public hearing. So at this point, all I'm looking for is a motion. Councillor Drew.
I will make a motion that bylaw 05/2022 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by redistricting lot 14, block 12, plan 2977 RS from R1 standard detached residential district to R3 high density residential district receives first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for May 3rd, 2022.
Any discussion? May 3rd, I think it was Tuesday. Sorry, date wrong in my head. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Next on page 285 in our package. We got a request from Living Waters to meet for a breakfast meeting. Theoretically, we had reached out to them as well, so obviously we'd be in favor of this. This will be on May 24th at 8:30 a.m. So I would recommend, Johnny, you say that we're available. Anybody thinking that we're not? Anybody got plans that far out yet?
I do, but that's okay.
Okay.
So that meeting has been confirmed with their administration.
Okay.
It will be here in Slave Lake.
Okay, perfect. Next, we had a letter from the Office of the Minister of Alberta Culture. And so we met with them back in November. And so here in March, they're sending us a letter to say thanks for that meeting back in November. We appreciate the response. As there's nothing else, let's jump right into Mayor's Corner. First off, I want to say big congratulations to minor hockey for a number of reasons. They hosted provincials this weekend. I had a number of teams come in from communities from all over across Alberta. Community was abuzz, talking to a lot of business people throughout the week. Lots of good traffic. It was a great experience, drives money for the economy, and got lots of compliments, thrown on my pizza hat for a second there, or whatever else. I spent a lot of time at the restaurant on the weekend. Lots of compliments from teams and visitors on our facilities that they thought we had a really nice facility and that our staff was doing a great job. So just passing that along. Also minor hockey, I think, in the past, we've done some recognition for these like significant things that have happened, but I almost feel like we need to rent the MRC to do it. So in the past, we've got a baseball team, for example, that has done really well at the end of the year, made it provincials, and basically playing off for one of the top spots in the province. It's a very significant thing. It's more, it's bigger than some of the other things that are going on. And so we like to say, hey, it's a great opportunity for us to say you guys are ambassadors. When you go to these events to show Slave Lake and show us off. And congratulations as youth putting in that effort. Thanks to all the coaches and things that are involved. And it's been a great experience to have like 10, 12, 14 of them here when those things happen. Well, I think somebody'd have to go back and check the history books here, whatever else, but I don't think we've ever had this many minor hockey teams, winning their divisions to this extreme in 1 year. And so, that's why I make a joke that we almost need the MRC to congratulate them all. But I think that we should do something because it was a lot of Slave Lake teams, a lot of teams getting recognition for kind of going all the way, to put it shortly. So good job to all the participants. all the coaches and all the volunteers that make that happen. And after 2 years of kind of no hockey and nothing going on, to see us jump back like that, I think it's great to see. ANSA, the Alberta North Central Alliance, we've got a meeting coming up here next week. The big news excitement that came over in the last week or so is as a group, we applied for a grant for $200,000 for some collaboration funding for the group to work together and come up with some strategic planning items and kind of move forward. And that grant was approved. So we'd like to thank the province of Alberta for that. And we'll see where those pieces go. I got a meeting with RCMP this week. And so the staff sergeant reached out us, Gary and I, to come to a staff meeting there to give an update on things that we're concerned about and talking about visibility and the importance of that and kind of get to say thanks for what they're doing. So we got that going on Friday. We had a Tri-Council Health meeting today. There's a municipality from down south that reached out through RMA, and I don't even know if RMA is still a thing, but for those watching on the outside, we have this thing called AUMA, which is now Alberta Municipalities, which represents all the towns and cities and villages. In Alberta, there's another group that does it for all the MDs and counties. And so basically they recently had a convention and there's a group that like a whole council that's coming up that wants to meet with the chief and I to talk about Tri-Council and how it works and that sort of thing. So that's happening next week. So we're going to do some work for that. It was also, one of the things, this probably doesn't get as much recognition as it should, but one of the things that was a big topic of discussion through strategic planning as well as budget is, there was a genuine belief from this council and this feeling of the fact that, we talked a lot about truth and reconciliation, both in the previous council and this council. And there was a strong desire to say, how do we understand this better? How do we do a better job with it? How do we incorporate it into our organization? And so we did have some help from Treaty 8 in the past with some educational pieces and training. And they're coming back next week. And it will incorporate not just our council, but all of our town staff. And so I'm excited for that. And I just want to say thanks to Joanna for working with Treaty 8 to put that together. And I'm looking forward to that next week. I also had a meeting with the newcomers. Kind of got this little subcommittee that's going on. The town basically got some money previously through a grant with Alberta municipalities to do a study kind of on what's it like for a newcomer that comes to our community, what kind of experience they have, and some action items like how could we do it better. And so I had a meeting with those guys today, definitely some passion from the group. And I think it's important. There's a lot of discussion around the importance of showcasing our community to other people that come in, as well as showing other people, new people that come to community, how do they connect with the right people? How do they contact the right people? How do we get them to experience the different things that are available in Slave Lake? Because we spend a lot of time talking about economic development and marketing and branding and getting people here. Getting people here is one thing, getting them to stay is another. And so, we need to grow those roots. So I was excited to see some people involved in that. And lastly, the big news, obviously, that came out today late in the day is that the town of Slave Lake is on the hunt for a new CAO. And so we'll have some information going out later this week advertising that position. And lots going on behind the scenes with that. Wrapping up Mayor's Corner, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried.